Hi, this is Katie Nelson, and I'm also known as Katie the Creative Lady online. And I'm so excited that you're here today for this tutorial. You can find me anytime on my blog at katiethecreativelady.com and also here on YouTube. I have several videos on my channel now, so I hope you'll be sure to check those out. Today I'm going to talk about page layout and design tips for your scrapbook layouts. And I'm really excited about this topic. This is something that's a bit of a passion of mine. I'm using the original orange products that I recently designed. And so I'd just like to walk you through them real quick. And I'll have kind of a fun tip for you about how to look at these designs later on in the video. I always have a set of pocket cards where there are 24 cards total, 12 in the size 3x4 and 12 in the size 6x4, so you can scrap using different sizes of cards depending on the type of layouts you enjoy. Pocket cards are great for traditional layouts or pocket pages. They're also great if you want to print them out as notes or even make them into little greeting cards. The filler cards are just that. They're great for filling the spaces on your pages. This set has a lot of warmth to it. I love the sun and the natural leaf, and that it can be a journaling or a filler card, that kind of that wild, chunky, zigzaggy stripe. The rainbow, where you're so happy, that reminds me a lot of maybe a bit of a 70s vibe, which I'll talk about in one of my layouts as well. And of course, orange slices always come to my mind with oranges and good times. That's a saying in our family. We always say good times. Sunrises and sunsets and beautiful nature scenes are definitely a part of autumn and the warmth of orange. But there are so many other fun themes that go with orange. This cute little Dreamsicle that my daughter drew with a digital dry brush, that's hard to say. And then, of course, I love quotes, and this is one of my favorite quotes by Nelson Mandela. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And those dandelion bursts in the corners just kind of finish that off nicely. There are journaling cards for recording your story, a nice leaf outline. The Memories Made has some fun boxes to fill in the details of the who, what, when, why, the best part, those type of documentation notes. And again, we see the same cards in the different orientation and the different size so that you have a variety. The orange paper pack was super fun to design. I love digital papers, of course, for digital projects. They're also great if you want to print them out for hybrid projects and you never run out of paper. You can use them as many times as you want. This dark orange has a nice linen look to it, and the leaves, of course, are one of my favorites. I love natural designs like leaves and flowers. The dandelions, I love the dandelion paper. It just has had so many uses for me already. And a nice simple grid design is great to add to any page. Those cute little Dreamsicles again are fun for a patterned paper, and also a nice sketchy little stripe. And plaids. Oh, I love plaids. And this orange plaid is fun and very versatile. And the watercolor paper is sort of a burst of a subtle watercolor mix, and that it makes for a really nice background paper. Some half circles, kind of in a modern style, and those orange slices. If you've been following along with my color kits, you know I've also done lime slices and lemon slices. Oh, and this is something that I've been very inspired by, a Terrazzo design. You might have noticed these are quite popular right now. I actually have a little basement bathroom in our house that has a terrazzo pattern tile. So I really love that. And then that geometric pattern, orange can be really modern and hip, and that's a great way to use it. The template set is very versatile and has a lot of options to it, and it will come in handy today for the tutorial. But I love that you can include either a lot of photos or a lot of journaling and sort of mix and match those pages together. And I always include double page templates as well for those who like to work in a single file for a double page. It's great if you're working on photo books especially. And templates are great because they take the guesswork out. You don't have to do all the measuring and all the fussing around with the details. I've done that for you. And it's like having a guide from a designer like myself that will show you where to lay everything out. And they already have the shadowing. They can be used over and over. You can get lots of different looks from them each time. The stamps and brushes are always something that I create from the files that I use to make this collection. And I love having these as an option because then you're not limited to only using them for this one kit or this one set of colors. You can put them into any of your digital files and do all sorts of creative tricks with them. And be sure to check out my digital stamps and brushes tutorial if you haven't already, because you'll get a lot of great ideas for those. For page layouts and with great design tips, I think the number one thing to pay close attention to would be balance. That really gives you a good overall design, helps you with your placement. There's lots of different components to page layout balance, and that often includes placement or size or color or the visual weight of items. And I'll talk about each of those things. And I want to just remind you not to get overwhelmed. Some of this might seem difficult at first, but you'll get the hang of it the more you practice. So I used a website called Smashing Magazine. This is a little bit of an older post from 2017, but I thought this would be a good reference to pass along if anybody really wants to deep dive more into this. I am going through a kind of a quick overview and keeping it very simple. If you're like, I just really want to understand this and get more into it, this is a great resource. So I'm going to recommend that. And of course, you can simply use Google and Google about balance in design. So there is something very simple called symmetrical balance. This is used a lot in nature. If you look at a butterfly is designed symmetrically. One wing looks just like the other wing. And then there's something in the middle, the body, in this case, breaking those up. Symmetrical balance is equal on either side, or at least visually equal. So you may think of it as, well, there's two squares. Those are exactly the same. But symmetrical balance can also be achieved using different sizes as long as they equal each other in weight and placement. So, there are more technical terms for this, but just for our purposes today, this is a really good explanation. You've got your exact equal and a pretty close equal, and we're going to call those symmetrical balance. Now, asymmetrical balance is not symmetrical. It's one thing on one side and something different on the other. And you can make them a little more compatible, a little more visually the same on each side. Like if, for example, if you had a large chunk on one side, you might want several small pieces on the other side to kind of balance it out. But the point is that they are not exactly equal side to side. Radial balance is just what it sounds like. It radiates out from the center. And this is where my fun little tip comes in about looking at supplies from my kits and collections, or anybody's for that matter. You may want to go back after you watch this tutorial and look through all the cards and papers I designed, especially the cards will give you a really good feel for this, and decide which ones have which type of balance, which ones are symmetrical, which ones are asymmetrical. This one's obviously a radial balance. That will give you the sun is radiating. That gives you a very good hint there. So take a look through those. It's a great way to practice your knowledge. Mosaic balance is kind of a newer term that I've run into in the design world over the last few years. But it's the idea that there can be a lot of pieces to a design, and when you kind of scatter them throughout in a way that is pleasing, and it doesn't have to be completely symmetrical, but you can be balanced with a mosaic as well. Now, different colors have different visual weights, and you might think, what does that mean? But it's pretty easy to see, and you'll get better at discerning this. But as you look through, often lighter colors have less weight than darker colors. It's sort of what makes sense to you in everyday life. There are things that just look heavier than others. Different shapes might carry more visual weight. So even though you may have a symmetrical design here, it may feel like it's tilted more to one side because of the color or even because of the content. So subject balance is another way that can happen. So this one's kind of interesting. I just took some pictures of plants, and you can see that I have two kind of similar images, a potted plant on each side, and then the bouquet in the middle. Now I could have 3 potted plants in a row, and those would all be pretty symmetrical. Even this is quite symmetrical, because if you divide it down the middle, you still have half a bouquet and then a potted plant on each side, although they're not exactly equal. This one has a different plant blurred in the background. One thing I did here to balance this out is I put this photo on this side because the pot is on that side of the photo. Same over here. The pot is on the far left side of the photo. That gives it even a little more of a balance. So play around with those and see. If I had put this potted plant in the middle and this bouquet over here, it would have been a much more asymmetrical balance. In this case, it feels almost symmetrical. Trust your eyes. Now, you might be thinking, oh, this is too hard. I don't understand all this, but you will know when something feels right, when something doesn't. I started putting these plant pictures together, and they're fine because they're both plants, and that gives them a little bit of tie-in and symmetry on your page, although this is a very different look. This is kind of up close and big and filled with different pots, and top down, where this one's coming from the front and it's got a lot of objects in. Those two might seem sort of odd together, but you could still tie them in with the theme of plants. But then what is with the bananas and the blue background and the pattern? I mean, that doesn't even go at all with this. So you're going to have an uncomfortable reaction when you see something that doesn't work. And so trust yourself. Don't worry too much. Just realize that you're going to have an immediate reaction. Now, if you are new to the ideas of design, it might take you a little while to hone this skill, and I'll give you some tips at the end that will help with that. Templates, of course, make it easy because as a designer, I have to think a lot about what the layout will be, how it's balanced, how I can make it easier for you to have a well-designed page, because that's my job. So I would always suggest, if you feel like you need guidance in this area, use a pre-made template, because that's going to be something that will really help. In this case, I have a lot of weight on this side of the page with the bigger, wider photos or card spaces. But then I balanced that out by putting an extra paper strip over here, where it's something where you can give some visual weight behind these more narrow cards or photos. And it's fun to play around with that. Here's a layout my daughter created using the orange set. And she just searched through her Google Photos for all her orange flower photos because she loves to take pictures of flowers. And she created this before I created this tutorial, so she didn't watch this tutorial. But when she sent me this layout, I realized that she had used some of these design principles. She balanced a lot of her color using the orange photos in the different places of the orange flowers, and she used a different element here. She used a pocket card right in the middle of two photos. So that was a nice way to sandwich that in and give it some balance on either side. She also added a little whimsy over here through the paper strip and kept it more simple along here. This is a layout I created using a template from this set, and I wanted to journal about using orange in my house. And I searched through all these photos, and of course the only thing they had in common was orange. And they are from different houses, different time periods, and have a very different look to each of them. But the common feature is orange. And I tried to think of a way to kind of balance these out. So this is a much darker orange. I put that in the middle, and I have the lighter oranges out on either side. These are more focused on pillows and the bedding, and here's a person in the middle. It's my daughter. And so that's kind of a way to play around with the placement to create a little more balance. Also, I have this great big block of text and a block of photos. Now, this is definitely an asymmetrical design still, because you have most of the weight of the layout is on this side with the paper strip and all the photos, but it's also somewhat balanced by using this big space of journaling to be equal in size almost to this block over here, instead of just being a tiny little paragraph. So there are a couple of different ideas at work there, but I think you can get a pretty good idea of what works with that layout. Now, you've seen some of these layouts in my other tutorials, and I'll just breeze through them really quick and explain some of the balance principles. Here we have a white background card and a photo that has a lot of white. A diagonal balance is really quite nice in a layout because it ties it together, having that and then having these two food photos go that way, and then of course tying it all off with the design up top. So that is one way to balance the layout. Another way is I have a card in the middle, and I've framed it with two very heavy yellow favored photos of flowers. Now they're not the same. This one has more visual weight and filler to it than this one, but you still get the feeling, and it comes together nicely because these are your yellow flowers framing this card that almost acts as a title. My green layout, I have a round element in my pocket card there and a round element in my photo. There are shapes that you can repeat that give a nice balance to the page. Also, two very natural photos of landscapes, where my middle photos are more centered in their subject, the brochure and the people. This is one of my roundup layouts. I have a lot of white here and a lot of white there. It's a nice diagonal tie. I also have photos of the same people here as I do here. You can see I've repeated some of the color and that was just coincidence, but we had some similar colors. So look for ways to tie in those photos together. Now, if I had put all the blue over here and all the white over here, it would have been a very different look. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just was looking to kind of balance those colors throughout the page. When you're in doubt, just move things around. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and it's fun, and you'll get a really good feel for how it looks good. So when I first created this page, I tried it a lot of different ways. I put the Tic Tac Toe up in the center. I put the journaling card down on the bottom. I tried them next to each other, and this was how it felt right to me. And it's a little bit playful in the design. So just enjoy it, have some fun. Page design is really fairly intuitive. There's more to it, of course, than I covered in this tutorial, and I will definitely revisit some of the other principles. But for right now, focus on especially balance in your design, or having an asymmetrical balance or a different kind of balance. And really study layouts that you like. When you see someone else create a layout that you like, look at it and try to understand what you like about it and how it's balanced. And look to the professionals. This is the biggest tip I can give you, is when you start looking through magazines or websites, study their layout, study the balance of their design, and study the tips and tricks that they have used. How have they placed color? How have they used shapes? Is it symmetrical? Is it radial? Is it a mosaic? What do you like about it? What would you want to use in your own designs? I'll just tell you that I hope that you are so happy with these fun little tips, and that you will definitely remember to subscribe or give me a thumbs up on my tutorial, so that you will be able to find future tutorials as I put them out. Anyway, thank you so much, and appreciate you coming to watch.